Now, as per Law Commission sources to CNN News 18, 8 million plus responses have been received so far on the Uniform Civil Code. Tribals are already granted protection under the Constitution to Article 371 and Scheduled 5 and 6. However, they won't be included in the UCC and they won't be touching the practices and the rituals of tribals. This is, of course, as per sources. Now, one of the major challenges in touching tribals under the UCC would have been that the codification of tribal practices of various tribes in the country is nearly impossible. Now, when it comes to live-in relationships, there likely won't be any mention in the Uniform Civil Code because sources say that they cannot have a parallel institution to marriage as it would give rise to many legal irregularities. And the focus of the UCC draft is to promote gender equality and family harmony. Now, the UCC drafters are deliberating strongly upon linking marriage registrations with Aadhaar cards as well. All of this information that's coming in is as per sources. Now, sources have also said that there's unnecessary fear which is being spread and that the UCC is an inclusive law. We're crossing over to our legal correspondent, Ananya Bhatnagar, for more on this. Ananya, over to you.
Well, definitely. These are what our sources have told us with regards to, the Uniform Civil Code and how the exercise is currently going on. Now, 80 lakh responses or 8 million plus responses have now been received by, in fact, the Law Commission of India so far from the public. Remember that today is the last day for sending of these public responses, and today the window will close, and then, the deliberations would actually begin. Now, what have we gathered so far is that, the tribals would be excluded from the Uniform Civil Code, because remember that there are various tribes in the country, and in fact, it's almost impossible to codify each and every practice of the tribals, and also in fact these tribes follow certain rituals that are not done by the general public, and codification of such tribes is not possible at this point of time, is what we have been told. And already the tribals are granted protection under the Constitution's Article 371 and Schedule 5 and 6. Apart from that, what we could gather is that the live-in relationships, as per the UCC, that is the larger UCC with regards to the whole country, would not have a mention in fact the UCC. The live-in relationships basically are kind of a parallel institution to marriage, and hence they cannot be put at par, is what our sources are telling us. Though it would not be illegal to be in a live-in relationship, but there would not be any legal recognition too for the same. So it would continue as it is at this point of time. It would be a status quo that would prevail on this particular issue, but legal recognition to the live-in relationship at this point of time, at least, is not being thought of by the makers of this law, and who are actually studying this particular Uniform Civil Code in the country. Apart from that, what is very, very important to note is that after these responses would actually come in, after the window closes today, they would be segregated, and various prominent bodies, not especially the women bodies, would be called in by the Law Commission of India to deliberate upon their suggestions, to know as to what more do they want and how would their suggestions affect a Uniform Civil Code in the country. And that is very, very important, because these deliberations might take some time, and in fact it might take some months as well. So definitely the Law Commission would be considering this exercise after this public window actually closes, and we'll have to see as to whether this 80 lakh or 8 million responses would cross actually 1 crore by tonight, when this whole exercise actually concludes. So definitely a lot in the mind of the government, a lot in the mind of the Law Commission, but how much does it come to the paper is something that we'll get to know when we see a draft of the Uniform Civil Code coming in.
Absolutely. And Ananya, one of the scoops that we've gotten as per Law Commission sources is that live-in relationships won't likely have a mention of the UCC. Sources say that they can't have a parallel institution to marriage, as it would give rise to many legal irregularities. Can you explain what kind of irregularities could present themselves?
Well, live-in relationships are very, very similar to marriage. There is no, registration of that, and there is no kind of ritual that is followed in a live-in relationship. But the two people who are in a live-in relationship live almost as the same way. So there might be a parallel, live-in relationships can be said to be some kind of a parallel institution towards marriage. And if at all marriage and live-in relationships are kept in the Uniform Civil Code, then we'll have to see, there might be that people who might not get registered their marriage. And of course, another big point that emerges out of this is also that, the UCC makers are actually planning to link marriage registration with Aadhaar card, so that people, if we've seen in the past that how some people, without telling their spouses, get married to another women or another man, and that comes out later. So to prevent that, to especially to prevent women and to promote gender equality, this would be a suggestion that would be coming forth in the UCC, that a marriage registration is something that would be made compulsory with Aadhaar. Linking with Aadhaar is something that would be coming in, but legal recognition to a living relationship might not be granted, though it would not be termed illegal as well. So it would be like, this is not something legal, but you can actually do it, and nobody will say it's not unlawful. Is how would the status quo would be maintained in this particular case?
All right. Now, one thing that you were also talking about in one of the scoops as well is that UCC drafters are deliberating strongly on linking marriage registrations with Aadhaar. That is something that will be unprecedented. Could you explain why this decision is being deliberated upon?
Well, definitely. A linking of Aadhaar cards with for marriage registration would something, as I was pointing it out earlier to you as well, that there are some people who get married into going to other states and without their spouses knowing it, and if at all, and they change their identity and marry other women. So, in order to prevent that, in order to prevent such cases taking place, a marriage registration and linking that with the Aadhaar card would not only be beneficial in tracking such malpractices, but can also be beneficial in various other things, that how passports are to be made. That would be made easier. Making of government documents, changing of names in the government documents after marriages, that would also become very, very easy if all this step is taken. But how much of it does come to the plate at the end of the day is something that we'll have to wait and watch for. These are all deliberations at the point of time that is happening, but these are strong deliberations that might find their way in the draft that comes in for a uniform civil code. But very, very importantly, Aisha, what has been told by to us to our sources is that there is a fear being spread by many people for their political gains, for their for their gains of power. But at the same point of time, they're very, very categorically clarified that uniform civil code is a inclusive law. It is not against any community. It is not against any religion. In fact, it's not against any gender as well. It is something that would promote a gender equality. It was something that would empower especially the women in the country. So we'll have to wait as to how the draft comes. In fact, the people who are connected to this exercise also say that once the draft of a uniform civil code would come in, every fear, every opposition to it would actually go away. Aisha.
All right, Ananya, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us those details.